life, often you fail to see the changes that occur. And other times you look and your mind has the ability to drift back. We should not be the same people today that we were 5 years ago. We should not expect to be the same person today 5 years from today. You know, life is it's like an amusement park ride. You know, you get on and you strap yourself in and you put the bar down in front of you, you know, and somebody else is running the equipment and you're hanging on for dear life. You don't know whether it's going to go up or down or around or whatever. All you know is that when it's over, you want to have stayed in your seat. Hopefully your hair's messed up and you didn't throw up much. But that's the way life is. And watching Karla on stage just now, I think of the decades of life that we've lived together and the girl that I married who in the beginning said, I see nothing in this business that is me. Promise me I don't have to sell anything or talk to anybody. And then you see her up here today. And the person that she exemplified on the stage today is the person she was back then. It just had not come out. So within you is the person that you were created to be, and I'll use Skip as a statement that he always said. And you are representatives of amazing organizations here in Australia. We talk a lot about Mitch and Deidre because they're right in front of it. But I'm sure we've got Harris people, and we've got Cox people, and we've got Angie people, and we've got people from, I know you're here. My goodness, Angie is here. Angie, how are you? No, but I know you are represented by some of the most amazing organizations that we know of in the world, let alone Network 21. When we first began the business, I was enthralled by stories. I love to tell stories. My grandpa was a big storyteller. I'd love to just tell you a dozen of the stories that he told as a pioneer man and born in the 1880s, growing up in that same area that Karl and I currently live. I would sit at his feet and listen to those stories and imagine I was right there with them, and the bears were in front. I mean, wow, here I go. So when we first began in the Amway business, Bob and Terry would send us cassette tapes when we were back in Arkansas making the decision to build our business. And I would go through them, how to show the plan, how to follow up, how to start up, how to have a good attitude, the such and such story. Whoa! I'd pop that in. And it always began with people who more or less seemingly were where I was at that moment. Very relatable in many cases, both from their age or their occupation or their financial situation or what they were thinking. But as the cassette would flip, and in the old days of a cassette, remember, how many remember cassettes? Okay. In the old days of the cassette, you'd go along for a while, then it'd go, and this thing would shut off because you were at the halfway point. Then you have to pop the button, it would pop up, and you'd turn it over, remember? And the other half. And the second half of the story, I was so ready for, because in most stories, it was where they had gone from where they started. Oh, my gosh. So for just a few minutes, I want to take you back and let you know that we were people who sat on the back row. But before that, we were just kids like you were once kids. We saw them on the plane. We've seen them in the restaurant. We've seen them in the hotels. We've seen there was a couple sitting right behind us, had a cutest little baby. And that baby, the mama went to get the food, and the baby just had her head all swung around, and she would go, Mama, Mama, Mama. I mean, she was so dependent on her mother, and I can remember feeling that way about my mom and dad. I just felt good when I was with them. My dad was my hero. He was tall. He was strong. He was brilliant, straight-A student all the way through university, all the way through graduate study. But what did he do with it? He was a farmer. He wanted to be a farmer, but he was a highly educated farmer. He was a custom surveyor. He even taught for years young people how to become farmers and how to become business people. Man, I just thought, wow, I just want to be like my dad. So as an only son, it was thought of that I would take on the family farm, which was good until I got to be a teenager. Then, like a lot of you, I began to think, wow, maybe there's a big world out there. I was a basketball player. I got a scholarship to play at a university down in Florida. So off I go to Florida. My whole world changed. I mean, my whole world changed. I grew up in a town of 600 people. Everybody knew everybody. We were mostly related to each other. So, you know, everybody, it's an amazing thing. It was so wonderful. There's a TV show in the United States called The Andy Griffith Show, and it came out years ago. And if you ever remember that show, Mayberry was Wiener. Wiener still is Mayberry. It's a little bitty town that your kids could get on a bicycle and ride all over town. You never worry about it. If they ever had a problem, they could walk into any house in the town, and the person in the house knew who you were, would bring you back home, or would feed you, or whatever. It was an amazing, wonderful place to grow up and live, but that was me. So as a teenager, I moved, when I went off to Florida to play basketball, wow, I was in Tampa, Florida. There was 1 million people there. There was traffic. There were people from all over the United States, all these different accents, all these different backgrounds, all these different examples and ideas, and my mind just expanded. And when I went back home to Wiener and went back to the farm, it looked much smaller. And it looked less satisfying because my mind had grown to a new dimension. So I finished up at the University of Arkansas, and after that, I had a choice. What am I going to do with my life? I moved back to Florida. I told my dad, I'm not ready to go into farming now. I moved back to Florida. I'm down there. I meet Karla down there. She was a university student. We began to spend time together. We began to date, you know. And then I remember the time when I began to say, you know, the pendulum swung, and I thought, this is the girl I want to spend the rest of my life with. Unfortunately, there were 3 or 4 other guys that seemingly had the same idea. I would go to the university, and she was walking around with some of these dingbats. You should have seen these guys. They were horrific. I mean, I looked at them, I said, look at that guy. Come on. You can do better than that, like me, you know. So we would be talking, and I would talk to her, you know, and I said, well, Karla, you know, what is it that you want to do with your life? Well, she wanted to travel. I said, well, whoever marries me is going to travel a lot. She said, really? I said, what else you want? She said, well, I love horses. I said, oh, boy, do I love horses. I've never been on a horse in my life. I'm going to have a big stable of horses, right, you know. And she said, I'd love to have a big house. I said, whoever marries me is going to need directions to get around in my house, you know. And one day she couldn't stand it, and she proposed, and I accepted, and so we got married, you know. Isn't that funny? I can remember wooing Karla. I can remember us falling in love, and I can remember us getting married, and we were just so ecstatically happy. We had no money. We had a couple of dead-end jobs. It didn't matter. Life was as good as it could possibly be at that moment as far as we were concerned. We were not regretful. We were not looking 5 years ahead. We were living every moment for the day. It was about that time that Bob and Terry showed us the plan. We saw the plan. They invited us to a meeting, and we went to the meeting, and an amazing thing happened. I had developed a love affair with airplanes when I was a little boy. I watched them fly in the sky. I wrote books about them. I drew pictures of them in classes. My favorite movies were like the story of Charles Lindbergh, you know. I grew up in the space race age and the astronauts, and the guy that lived across from me went on to the Air Force, became a test pilot, flew with the Air Force precision team, the Thunderbirds, right there from Wiener. He would, on weekends, fly on cross-country trips with students, and he would divert and would fly his F-4 Phantom fighter at 500 feet right over the town of Wiener. Break sound barriers and all the glasses, and everybody look up and go, well, there goes Sonny, you know. I mean, and that was me. I could see myself in it. So I always had a fascination with airplanes, and always would say, so when I get big, I'm going to own an airplane. And everybody said, oh, how cute. Sure, you'll have an airplane. People encourage, for the most part, small children. But when they get older, people begin to try to be real. And by the time I was down in Tampa, everybody was telling me planes were expensive and planes were dangerous and farmers don't own airplanes and nobody at my job had an airplane. And, you know, wow, but I still wanted one. Karla and I, on some of our dates, would go out to the Tampa airport and just sit out there and watch planes take off and land, take off and land, take off and land. And I'd say, there's this and there's that. So at the plan that I saw with Bob and Terry, the guy showed the plan, got to the end of the plan, he said, and yes, and I, you know, for the money from the business, I bought an airplane. Well, I met the guy. And I said, you really got an airplane? He said, yeah. I said, that's what I want. He said, well, you can have one too. First time anybody ever said that, and really as an adult, you can have one too. And then he looked at Bobby and said, and the guy here will help you get it. I looked at Bobby, he said, sure I will. And a new revelation occurred to me about the Amway business, that we are people helping people who help people who help people. And when everybody is out there dreaming and achieving, it creates a very happy atmosphere, a very attractive environment. Who would not be around a group of people who are happily achieving their goals and their dreams? Instead of sitting around with a bunch of people grumbling and complaining about why they'll never have it. So this business has an aura about it. It has an attraction about it that pulls people in and makes people want to be a part of it. So we signed up. For a year, we did absolutely nothing. If you've heard the bus ride of a lifetime, you know what happened in that year. I was not ready to be accountable to anybody or to a system. I wanted to take the Amway business and apply it to my personality, apply it to my schedule, and do things my way. I didn't verbalize that. I just didn't go along with what everybody else, including my upline, wanted me to do. Didn't go to meetings, didn't use the products, didn't read the books, didn't listen to the tapes. It took a year. Now we have transferred back to Arkansas. I'm now 18 hours away from my sponsor. There we are in a little town of 600 people, not even in the town, living out in the country. You had to drive about 7 miles out in the country. The road got worse and worse and worse to get to our house. In fact, the road going to our house was so bad that in the winter months, it was often, are you hearing me? Impassable. Impassable. Just 5 years before I was born, my parents and my older sister were living out there, and they used a wagon and mules to get in and out of that location. Are you hearing me? That's where we were living. The home was the size of this, are you kidding? Not the size of this stage. It was the size of from here to the front and over here to the front. This was our house. It had 2 rooms. And I remember working out there, hard labor, 14, 15 hours a day, shovel, swinging an axe, doing the stuff. And being 21 or 2 or 3, whatever I was, I could do the work. I grew up out there doing the work. But I saw those guys that were old, I mean old guys, like in their 40s and 50s that were out there with me. And they would go, ugh, ugh, ugh. And then they'd go and go to the next job. And I thought, whoa, that's me. Have you ever had a glimpse of your future through the eyes of somebody else and go, woo? And so I called Bob and I said, we're ready. Karla didn't believe it. I told him 3 times before, but I said, we're ready. And from that moment on, something changed in my brain. And every night I'm showing the plan. Every night I'm showing the plan. Every night I'm showing the plan. Who am I showing it to? I had 600 people in that little town. And I showed it to every one of them. Or so it seemed. And everybody said no. My family said no. My close friends said no. My former school teachers said no. The people that went to the little church said no. Everybody said no. And I'd call Bob, and he'd say, you're right on track. And I said, where's this track going, right? And it was amazingly frustrating because I wanted yeses. And I was clearly stating the fact that I wanted an airplane, and I want you to get in business with me and help me get my airplane. Why wouldn't everybody want to do that? But then I began to listen to more of the cassette tapes. There were no meetings to go to, so I listened to the cassette tapes. There were no opens, no BBSs, no podcasts, no webinars, none of that stuff, no cell phones, right? No computers. It was just us in the farmhouse showing the plan, nobody else. But I listened to the cassette tapes as you can listen to the CDs, and I began to hear and began to listen to technique and begin to listen to posture and begin listening to attitudes and begin listening to relationships. And my mind just expanded like when I went to Florida, and I began to think differently that what I needed to do was find out what people wanted and help them get it. One girl wanted curtains in her bathroom. Curtains in her bathroom. And I looked at her and I wanted to say, you got to be kidding. I'm wanting an airplane and you want stupid curtains? I'll go buy you the curtains. Give me something real. But I'd been listening to the cassettes, and I said, oh, really? And how much would that cost? I don't know, $9, whatever it was. And I said, okay, I'm going to help you get it. And she looked at me like I looked at the guy in Tampa at the meeting when he said, Bob would help me get the, he said, you'll help me get the curtains? I said, yes. I helped her put them up when she got them. She sold some products, took the money, and got them. One girl told Karla, she said, I hate to clean a house. And Karla said, you need a housekeeper. She lived in a house about like ours. Housekeepers were for people in mansions. No, 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 no. A housekeeper gets paid by the hour. They don't care if they are cleaning a mansion or a little bitty house. They don't care. So Karla showed her how much it would cost her to have somebody come once a week and clean her house. It was nothing, but to her it was everything. And when that housekeeper would pull up there and she had all the clothes dirty and all the dishes dirty, and she'd let everything go for 2 days, and she'd come back at the end of the day, and for like $9, the house was clean. It was like she was a Founder's Crown ambassador. I learned the lesson. You help people get what they want. And the tide began to turn, and people began to say yes. And I thought that was the great victory. When people say yes, that's where it's at. But then I began to realize that's like the pregnancy is not all there is to raising children. It's like we have a couple back home, and they go to church. They just had a baby not long ago. And having never been pregnant myself, I can't truly appreciate what it is like, but I do know this. It's usually about 9 months, and when it's over, then our children are in our 40s, and we're still raising them, right? So there is a lot to do after the baby is born that most people aren't thinking about. There's a lot to do after somebody signs up that most people, all I was wanting was yeses. So as soon as I'd get a yes, I'd go on to the next one. And I'd go on to the next one. I'd go on to the next one. Not looking behind me, that realizing the yeses were falling off of the screen. They were like having a baby, and I set it out there on a doorstep and say, okay, got you going now. I'm going to go back and have another baby. So I began finding out that I was not advancing my cause. I was replacing the ones that were leaving off. And so we began to learn what it was like to build a team. We began to learn what it was like to develop leadership skills. Everybody is a leader. Everybody is a leader. But there are good and bad leaders. We can either lead people to success, or we can lead people to mediocrity, and we can lead people to failure. And we had to learn then how to develop a team. The difference between a group and a team. A group is what you find in an elevator. You get in an elevator, and 9 people get in an elevator, and the door closes. The only thing people are looking at is the number. Get me to my floor and get me out of here. That's a group. A team is a group of people in an elevator that gets stuck. Because then everybody wants out, and we're all willing to work together. I had to learn how to turn our group into a team, and so I began listening to the cassettes and listening, and by then we were going to meetings, and anything that had to do about leadership, anything that had to do about building a team, anything that had to do about building depth and all that, wow, I was into that. By layers, we began to grow. You do not get a diploma your first week or month or year at the university. It is a process. You are involved in a process. Don't worry about your senior level courses. There are people upline who will happily fill in the gaps and take care of anything that needs to be done, because your success builds their success. All you got to do is learn what is being taught to you right now, the skill levels that you need to learn. In the beginning, it was a very basic thing. I needed to learn how to prospect. I need to learn how to show the plan. I need to learn how to follow up and help get a decision. I need to learn how to do a startup, and eventually I'll need to learn how to build depth. And we call those the 5 basic concepts when we first started in business. And we were working on those. But you can't work any depth if you don't have any prospects. So I learned how to get out there on a regular, everyday basis and walk around with a smile on my face and not be overbearing and not jump into people's space and not interrupt people or whatever. But I just learned how to be conversational and then walk away. Be conversational and walk away. I'd spend a whole time, I'd go into the mall and I'd set a goal to talk to 20 people and never, ever, ever mention this business. Even though I'd had the opportunity to, I taught myself the discipline saying, don't talk about the business. But why, Ray? Don't you want to add people? No, I don't want to feel the pressure that every time I talk to somebody, I got to mention the business. Just be a nice person. Just be a friendly person. Just act interested in them. Just compliment them. Tell them they're doing a good job. Tell them that's a cute baby. Tell them you love the boots or whatever. I don't care whatever it is. I learned how to do that until it became habitual, and then I never even thought about it again, and I haven't thought about it for years. When I first came in here this morning, the first thing I wanted to do was not sit at the table. I wanted to get around and going around and around. I met a lot of you. I didn't get a chance to meet all of you, but I would have loved to. I went straight to the back. Why? I love to go to the back. That's where all the future diamonds are currently setting. Every future diamond that Network 21 will have in Australia starts in the back. That's exactly right. So Karla and I, over a process of time, our business began to grow. Our first month of really active in the business, we had 1,000 points and hit Leaders Club. You say, oh my gosh, that's unbelievable. Well, yeah, looking back on it, it was a pretty cool achievement. But Bob and Terry made no big deal about it. We were off by ourselves, and so we thought everybody was doing that. There is a lesson there, folks. When people get off to a good start, don't treat them like they've already achieved greatness. Just hold it inside till you get home, then you can scream and jump up and down and say, I finally got one. But when you're with them, just let them know that's expected. Never be afraid of a growing leg. Don't ever be afraid of somebody who's better than you, gets off to a faster start than you. And I remember when that happened for us. I went home and I thought, it's so easy for him. Well, he had 9 people at his first meeting. I couldn't get anybody. The struggle. I remember telling you the story once. I was so frustrated. Shoulder plan, shoulder plan, shoulder plan, shoulder plan, shoulder plan, shoulder plan. No, 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 no. And all over town, people were talking about me. I could tell they looked differently when I walked into any store, any building. Has he been to your house? Remember that? No, he's not been to our house. He's coming to your. Remember that? It was like I had a big X on my forehead. I'm the Amway guy, and I'm coming to get you, right? People would run from me when I start conversational. They go, oh, my goodness, look what time it is. Hey, got to run. Good to see you. Tell Karla hi. And I go, what? It just started, you know. So I was going to one of my best friend's house. I remember it like it was yesterday. And he was living currently in the home that his parents used to live in. I grew up in that house. I spent nights in that house. I mean, it was an amazing place, and I can still remember all those fond memories. I pulled into their driveway, and when I did, they turned their lights off. They turned their lights off, folks. This is in Wiener, my town, my hometown, my good friend. I knew they were in there. I knocked on the door. Nobody came to the door. It's so frustrating. I tried the door. It was locked. I would have gone on in. So I got back in the truck, and I was so mad, I thought, I'm going to go back home again. Another bad night. I'm so frustrated about this. As I'm turning around the corner, I'm thinking of all the good memories in the house, and I remember they used to have a key in the back porch. I parked the truck by the side of the road, and I thought, should I do this or shouldn't I do this? I think I will. I went to the back porch, and there was the key. It's been there for 50 years. I tried the lock. It still worked. I walked into their house. When I walked around the corner, they were still in the front room looking out the window. I walked up right beside them. I said, who are we looking for? Yeah. I showed them the plan, and they said no, but I still somehow felt better. I sponsored this guy one time, and I didn't know I was going to. I was on a string of no's, man. You get 20, 30, 40 no's in a row, you're very comfortable with it. He said, I think I want to do it. I said, you want to do what? He said, I want to get in. I said, you want to get in what? He said, I want to sign up. I said, you want to sign up? I wasn't prepared for that. I said, well, there's some paper or something I signed? I said, well, yeah, there's a paper. He said, well, where is it? I said, I can't remember. I got it somewhere here. I pulled it out, and he signed it up. I said, are you sure you want to do this? I said, this isn't as easy as you think. I tried to talk him out of it. Isn't it crazy? We sign up people who are excited, more excited than we currently are, and we try to tamp down their excitement. Don't get your hopes up too high. That was me. He signed up. I go home. I'm out there in the country road. I pull up in front of the car and the house, and Carla's at the front door. I said, we got one. We got one. He said, no, we don't. He quit. What do you mean he quit? He just called. His wife won't let him do it. He wants you to drive back and bring him the money. And I did. I want you to picture that. I drove back and I gave him the money. He wouldn't let me come in the house. He met me out the front door. Said his wife was furious. And I got mad. I don't often get mad. I've got mad in sports on the basketball court. I remember a guy just beat me, driving by me and scoring and whatever, and I remember getting mad. And somehow inside of you, there's an energy that you didn't realize you had. You know what I mean? You think you're tired to adrenaline and the chemicals God put in your body can take over, and all of a sudden, for the moment, you can advance beyond what you originally thought you could. I remember I thought, I'm not going home. I am not going home. So I didn't. I mean, it's late. Folks back there, people got up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and they were in the field at 5:30. You're there watching the sun come up, and you're out there working. It's cooler. So by 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, everybody's in bed. I did not go home. I went to my cousin's house. My cousin was named Lewis, and his daddy was Malcolm, wherever Malcolm is. And I met Malcolm last night. And so I knocked on the door, and there was no lights on. Pretty soon a light came on. He opened the door. He said, Ray, is that you? I said, let me in. He said, what are you doing? What time? I said, it's 11:30. Let me in. He said, what are you? He let me in. I said, where's Brenda? He said, she's asleep. Get her up. He said, she's got to go to work at 7. 7? I'm going to work at 5. Get her up. He said, she's not going to be very happy. I said, Lewis, look at my face. Do I look happy? I'm not happy. You're not happy. All God's children are not happy. Get her up. She came down the hallway with hair rollers. Girls used to have these rollers. They'd take these orange juice cans and roll it up. I mean, she looked like she could get 3 channels on her television set with that. She sat down at the table, and she had her arms crossed, her legs crossed, her eyes crossed. I could see the sparks flying out of those antennas. And I looked at her, and I said, you know who's got the second littlest house in Wiener? She said, who? I said, you. I got the littlest house. You got the second littlest house. Guess who's getting ready to have the littlest house? Because we're building a big house, because I'm going to make a lot of money. I'm going to show you how to make a lot of money. Do you want a big house? And she said, yes. And I showed it to them, and they signed up. Now, don't applaud. They signed up. I took white out, and I whited out the loser. No, not the loser. I whited out the other guy, and I put her name down. I remember that. I'm 23. I'm mad. And I signed them up. I said, that'll be $41.95. He said, I don't have it. I went, where was the cassette that talked about that? I said, what do you mean you don't have it? He said, I don't have $41. He said, but I got a cuckoo clock I'll give you. A cuckoo clock? Yeah, it's a plastic one my dad won in some sales contest. It doesn't work, but you can have it. I'll take it. Signed him up. I took the cuckoo clock home. I'm home. It's now 12:30, getting up at 4.5 hours. Carla's been in bed for 9 days already. And she hears a banging on the door. I'm putting the cuckoo clock on the wall. I'm nailing it to the wall. She said, what are you doing? I said, I'll tell you in the morning. She said, I want to know now. I said, I signed up Lewis and Brenda. She said, what's that got to do with a cuckoo clock? He didn't have any money. He gave us that. He said, it's broken, but it looks good to me. Plastic. I wound it up. When I turned it, the little door wouldn't open. The little bird was back there going, I turned it around again. I could hear his little head hitting the door, and it wouldn't open. And I said, I know exactly how you feel. Yeah. We kept that clock on the wall. Listen to that bird hit his head against that door till we were in emerald qualification. That clock represented a turning point, as you will have, because from that day forward, my plan changed. It was not about how big Amway was. It was not about our product line. It was not about the numbers and the percentages and all of that. It was what I said before the plan and what I said after the plan. It was setting the stage for helping them realize and believe, I am here to help you, because if you do well, I will do well. What do you want? What do you dream about? What are you afraid to talk to people about? Don't be afraid, talk to me. And then it was, during the plan, a shortened version, much shortened version. My plan went down to about 15 minutes. It was about connecting this with what they said they wanted. And then at the end, it was talking about Bob and Terry Andrews and the people that were upline from us, and that they weren't joining me, they were joining a winning team. I said, man, if you're going to join a team in mid-season, don't you want to join a team that's going to go to the championship? Don't you want to join a team that's winning every night, that you go in the clubhouse and everybody is, yeah, boy, they're the best. I said, I'm on the best team. You can join that team. And people began saying yes. So we hit 1,000 points. And the next month, 15. And the next month, 25. And the next month, 4,000. Had an accident on the farm, got burned for 6 weeks, delayed our 7,500 by 1 month. The following month, we were at 7,500. Following year, we went Ruby, doubled our numbers. Following year, we went into Emerald qualification at Emerald. Following year, we hit Diamond. During that process, obviously, I got the airplane. We got the new cars. We got the big house. We got the swimming pool. We were having babies. We were always changing diapers and fixing the bottles and arranging for babysitters. It was exhilarating. In the time that people take to go to university and get a degree, we went from the guy that everybody said no to total and complete financial independence, traveling around the world and teaching our kids there are people like you who are just friends they had never met before. It does not take forever. It just takes a few months of learning how this system works, learning what subtle, slow but sure changes and adaptations that you can make, believing in the power of the people who are above you, who will invest in you and will not ask for you to pay them back. They're paid through this unbelievable, incredible plan that's paid $50 to $60 billion of money to people all over the world already. In its 60th year, $9 billion a year, thousands and thousands of employees, 100 countries around the world. The die is cast. Folks, McDonald's works. Folks, Apple works. Folks, Amway works. Look at the numbers. Network 21, 30 years, 40 countries, 23 languages. The largest organization of its type internationally Amway has ever created in the history of the world. All the product of Jim and Nancy Dornan, who in a little room in a hotel upstairs told Karla and I and a small group of people, Nancy's dream is to own an international business, and we're going to devise a plan to make that happen. I was in the room that opened the door for you guys. I was in the room that opened the door to India. We were in the room with we were part of that small little group of people who pretty soon banded with some of your leaders over here in Australia and said, you guys want to go along for the ride? Mitch and Deidre, remember that meeting? You remember when that happened. You were in that room, and a handful of people like Angie and Basil and Leona and Glenda, and I don't want to leave anybody out. A small group of people from Australia and that small group of people in the United States banded together and took this system all over the world. That led Karla and I here to meet all of you for the first time 3 decades ago. And we were then talking about, here's what Network 21 is. Here's what's going to happen. Come take a ride with us. Come go with us. Build a global business. And many people in the audience could not see it, could not buy in, and bless their hearts, they're home somewhere tonight and have no idea what they missed. But all across the room, I see a few of you. I see those faces of the people, whether you're diamonds yet or not, you stuck with us. You're the ones that said, I was in Mudgee. Yeah, I saw you. I heard that bus ride tape that first time. Yeah, and I just want to hug you. I don't care what your pin is. I don't care how many points you got. That's got nothing to do with it. When we looked around behind us, you were there. You didn't go home. And that's what's made this business work literally all over the world. My dad grew up in a one-room schoolhouse, 1 through 8. They never went past the 8th grade then. He had to go somewhere else to go ahead and get his school. I told you he was a smart guy. 1 through 8. The Great American Depression. No money, no food, no nothing. He said one year for Christmas, a kid that never had any shoes got a new pair of shoes for Christmas. Every day he carried those shoes in the box they came into school and set them by his desk. He didn't wear them. He didn't want to wear them out. He owned them. They were his prized possession. People say, where are your shoes? He said, they're just fine right where they are. And I thought, wow. I remember when I began to treat this business like it was a prized possession someone had given us. And from that point forward, good things began to happen. And we expect that for you. Thanks.